Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar where we're going to be covering how to import customer records, and that's going to be presented by myself. We've also got Michael in the background as well, ready to answer any questions that you may have around today's topic. So make sure you do pop them into the questions panel and keep him busy for the next half an hour or so there. Today, we're going to be covering an introduction into importing customer records and some demonstrations just to see how this works. And I do have plenty of demonstrations to go through as well. But don't worry, if you are wanting to make notes while watching it, you will get a recording of the session by email in around about an hour's time after the webinar has ended. So if you want to watch it back at your own pace, then you're going to have that to be able to do that as well. We'll also have a look at a bit of troubleshooting as well, any issues that you may have while importing records, and then we can have a look at further support and any questions that you may have around the topic today. So why might you want to import records? Well, if you have a large amount of data to enter, or you might want to make changes to multiple records, you can save time by importing the information. This brings all the data into your software in one go rather than manually entering each individual item. So it's a great time saver. The two main uses for importing records, as mentioned, you might need to add new data in bulk. So records, for example, and this is what we're going to be having a look at today, in particular customers. Or you can also use it to import transactions that you've got generated from another software. And to save you keying them all in, you can import them in. And Michael has covered this recently. The webinar is on our recordings page for importing transactions, but I have popped a link on the next slide as well for you for that. The other reason that you might use it, and many people are not aware of this, but you can also use it to update multiple records. So if you want to update a credit limit, for example, to multiple customers, this can be a really quick way to do it. The benefits are that it saves you time. It can be quite time consuming if you're sitting keying in all of your customers or suppliers. The import option is flexible. You have the data import wizard, which not only guides you through the process, but it also gives you a list of import templates that you can access just by clicking here in green. See that on the screen. Avoids making mistakes too. So if you were manually keying in all the data, sometimes mistakes happen or keying in data into the wrong field. If you're just importing it, that removes that human error element. You can see from the wizard on the slide that there is quite a list of things that you can import into the system. You can import records such as customers, suppliers, nominals, products, projects, fixed assets, as well as transactions. So your audit trail transactions, project-only transactions, stock taken, stock transactions. The options available will depend on the level of the software that you're using. For example, if you're not using the professional level, you won't see project details. Now, I'll be using the professional level on the demonstration, but I'm going to be concentrating on importing customer records, as that's today's topic, and that's available to everybody. And importing records is pretty much the same, whether they're customers or nominal codes, for example. I've also included the link, as I said there, to importing transactions webinar. So that's the one that Michael recently ran through. So if you do want to have a look at importing transactions as well, the link's just on the slide for you. Things that you can't import are invoices into the invoices list or questions into the, quotations into the quotations list. And that's mainly just because the information, it can vary so widely. Things like if you've got stock, discounts, account statuses, etc., just to consider on there. So you can't import those in. So we'll pop into the system. I'll open my Sage so you can see that on the screen there. So you should be able to see that there. And we'll first have a look at where you can see those import templates. So if we go to File at the top and down to Import, it's going to open up this window. So you would have seen this on the slide. And we've got this underlined here, which we can click on. So if I click on that just to show you, opened it up on my other screen, so I'll just drag that over, and it gives you a list in the program of all of the templates that you can use. You've got your audit trail transactions all the way through down to your supplier. So we're concentrating on customer records. So I'll open up this one just so you can have a look and see what it looks like. Just maximize that. So you'll see we've got some headings along the top there. If I just click off so you can see them, and we've got them in different colours. So the only one that is mandatory is in the sort of greeny blue colour. So account reference, that is a mandatory field. You would need to have that included. The rest of them, they're all optional. So you can decide what you want to import in. Anything you don't want to import in, you can just leave it off there when you're importing it. And we'll have a look at that in a moment. They have a little bit of information on them as well. So if we hover over the little red triangle in the corner, it tells you a bit more information. So the account reference tells us that it's required. We must complete that field. Gives us a description, the format that it needs to be in, any restrictions. So it needs to be a maximum of 8 characters, can't be any longer. And it gives us an example as well. It does it for all of them. So if I have a look at account name, it doesn't tell us that this one's mandatory, just tells us the description, what it's used for, the format, restrictions again. So you get a maximum of 60 characters and it gives us an example. So that's the same across the board on there. So you do have these templates. They are read-only. You can see at the top there. So if it is something that you're going to be using, what you would do is save it as a copy. You could rename it and fill your details in and just use it from there. And the reason it's read-only is just so you don't save over the template. So you've always got that blank template to be able to open up and use at any point there. I'll close that for now. And we'll close out here. And we're going to have a look at importing some records. So I've got a few different records that we're going to import. And what I'll do is I'll open them first so you can see what we're looking at. And then we're going to look at importing them. And the first one is going to be a demonstration of my own file import with no headings. So I'll open that up so we can have a look at it first of all. You can see along the top, I've got my own headings, account reference, name, and then I've just got address 1, 2, 3, etc. along the top. So it's got headings in there, but it's not using the template from Sage. And then I've got my customer information. So this is the one that we're going to import first. So I'm going to close out of it. You need to make sure that the file that you're importing is closed. Otherwise, you will get an error message. And with regards to this one, importing data is what you would call an exclusive program request, meaning that other people need to be logged out. So if you're on a network or you're using remote data access, the same goes for if you're in the import wizard, somebody tries to log in, they won't be able to. They'll just get a message telling them that somebody is in the import area. So it is an exclusive area there. First thing you would do when you're importing, and I'm just going to quickly close this and show you that I am using a completely blank company here. So just to show you customers, I've got nothing in here, got no suppliers, got no transactions, completely blank company so we can see it from start to finish. So I'm going to go back to File, into Imports, and I say yes to closing other windows. You would always take a backup. So even if you're 100% certain that the data that you're importing in is correct, always just take a backup before importing data in. Just then, if you have made a mistake on there, it's easily rectified. You can just restore your backup in and you're good to go there. Now, I'm not going to take a backup every time, just for make it a bit quicker on there. So I'm going to click Next, and we're going to choose what we're importing. So I'm importing customer records in. I'm going to click Next again. And then we're going to choose if it's a comma separated value, so a CSV file, or is it an Excel worksheet? So mine's an Excel, so I'm going to leave it ticked as Excel on there. And then I'm going to browse to the data that I'm importing. And it's this one here. So I've named it demo own file with headings. So that's the one I want first of all. And then we've got this option here, first row contains headings, and I'm going to leave that ticked. And what that means is when it pulls through or it imports the data, it's not going to try and import that first line that just said account ref, address 1, address 2, etc. It's going to pick that up as the account headings on there. Click Next. And then we get our field mappings on here. So the field mappings, this can vary. So if you're using the template, because the import field and the Sage field are the same, so they've got exactly the same name, same lettering on there, upper and lower case as well, it will be mapped. So it's basically, it's mapping what you have on the import to where it's going to go into Sage. So account reference, so this is our Sage reference. On my import template, I had it down as ACREF for short. So I'm going to pop that in there. tells us that this is a required field, so this one has to be mapped. Even if I don't map the rest of them, it just means it wouldn't import the rest of the details because it doesn't know where to put it. So anything that we want importing in, we need to map it on here. So I'm going to go to the next one. So my account name on my import template, it was called name, street 1. In mine, it's called address 1, and so on. So I'm just going to fill these in. Then we had address 3, address 4, and the postcode was address 5. I had a contact name, which I've just got down as contact. And then we have telephone number. So that's the information I had on there. I'm going to come on to these a little bit later. They're saving the mapping on there. So I'm going to leave those for now, and I'm just going to click next. Gives us an import summary. And I'm just going to click on import. And what it'll do is it'll go through a couple of checks at this point. It'll check that the data, it'll run through the 2 checks just to check that it can read the file and want to write it into Sage itself there. And then it gives us a list of records that have been imported. So we know that that's gone through successfully. They're all showing in here. So I'm going to close that. We'll just go and have a look at the customers. And we can see that they have now been imported in there. So we've got them showing in there. So if we move on to the next one. So the next one I've got is a one with no heading. So what does that look like? So if I just open up my import template, so pretty much the same sort of information, but the first line doesn't contain headings this time. So it just goes straight into the information. So if we close this, it needs to be closed, remember. And we're going to go back to File, Import. Yes, I want to close those windows. Take that back up. Hit Next. Customer records. Next. It's for all of mine are Excel files, so I'm just going to leave that ticked on there. I'm going to browse to the one that I want to import. This one here with no headings. We'll open that one. Now, if I leave that ticked, I'll just show you what it does. So if I click Next, just so you can see what it pulls through. So the account reference, you can see there that it's actually pulling through the first customer's information on that list there. So on my template that I've got, it's actually pulling through the customer information rather than any headings. So if I click back, if I untick that, and then if I click Next, now if I have a look at it, it's just got the column lettering at the top. So I know which ones they refer to. So it was just down on here. You can at this point, if you're not too sure, if you open it back up again, you can just double check it. So it doesn't have to be closed at this point. So I can have a look and go, yep. So it goes along. I've got my customer information. You can check the columns that you've got them in, close out of it, and go back in. So if I pop these details in here, leave it at that just for speed. And then I'm going to click Next. Again, gives us that summary. And then I can click Import. And we can see those have been imported again. So if I close out of that, go back into customers, we've got a few more in there now. So I just didn't pop those details in. I didn't map those ones. So we'll go and have a look now at, we have the import template. So this is the Sage import template. So I'll open it up just so you can see what that looks like. This is the import template that we've got in Sage. We've got more information in this one as well. And you can choose what you want to import in at this point as well. So if I close out of here, I take my backup as usual. I'm going to click Next. It is customer record, still an Excel worksheet. I'm going to browse to that worksheet. So it's this one here, which is my import template. Click OK to that. Now we know the first row contains headings because it's the import template that I'm using. Now if I click Next on here, You'll see that it's all mapped, and that's because the Sage field is exactly the same as the import field on the sheet that we're using there. So it's picking it up because it's exactly the same. So it knows to pick those details up. So if there was anything on here that I didn't want to import in, so maybe I didn't want analysis 1 on there, you can scroll back up, leave that blank, and it won't import in analysis 1. So you can pick and choose what you want to import in at this point. But it's mapped everything for me, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to click Next. Gives us that summary, and I'm going to click Import. It goes through those 2 checks, and they've been imported fine. But what about if you have got multiple worksheets? So if you've got an Excel sheet that's got more than one sheet on there. So if I open up my next one, just to show you what that looks like. So if we have a look at the bottom, I've got 3 sheets here. I've got marketing data. It's got nothing on this one. I've got sheet 2, just got a table in here. And I've got sheet 1, which has my information that I want to import in. How does it know what it's going to pick up from there? Well, if we close out, and if we go to File and Import, and take a backup, click Next, choose which type of record it is. So it's customer records. We know it's Excel still, and I'm going to browse to it, and multiple worksheets. Obviously, you might have them called different things. Now, when I pick that one up on there, it recognizes that there's more than one worksheet on there. You can see it's brought up an additional drop-down box there, and it just asks us to select the one that we want to import. So if I have a look at the drop-down, we've got the marketing data, which had nothing on it. Sheet 2, that had the little table on, and sheet 1, that is the data that I want to import. So I'm going to choose that, and I'm going to click Next. Then give us the mappings again. So at this point, we can just go through and we can map what we have on our import template onto or into Sage there. So if I just pop these in here. Miss Roncy, this is why these bits are going to come in handy in a moment there. I think I've got 2 3s on there. So this is where it's going to come in a lot easier once we can look at saving them, which I'm going to come on to in just a moment. Pop contact on there. So if I click Next, gives us that summary, and then we just import it again, and it goes through those 2 checks again. Brilliant. It's gone through fine. So if you have a look at customers, we can see there now we're building up quite a list on there. This is obviously where I haven't mapped the contact name or the telephone number for quickness, so it's got a gap on there. So what does it look like for the mapping? So those parts that we were just having a look at there. So if I go back into my import, just say yes to that, do my backup, click Next, customer records still, click Next again, and I'm going to browse to my mappings one, and I'll open it up just so you can have a look. What there, if we just open it and see what it looks like, and also so I can check if it's got headings on, because I can't remember. So we've got these customers, and it does. So it's got headings on there, and we've got some customers, which will end up at the end because they're all got the reference with Z at the start there. So I'll close out of here. I'm going to click Next. I'm going to leave it ticked. First row contains headings. And then we'll have a look at the mappings on here. So instead of having to click on them all of the time, now if we have a look postcode, it's picked that one up because it's exactly how it is in the program. But to save you having to go into here and map it every single time and make a mistake like you saw on the last one there, so you've got to sort of click them all in. If you're using one of your templates, which you know you always have it set out like this, you don't want to have to come into here, use the drop-down boxes, trying to find the information, use the contact names. So I'm popping them all in first of all. And the telephone number. So I've mapped them all on here. Now, if I click on Save Map, it'll open up the mappings in the background. So this is within your company file here. So you've got your mapping details. Now I can save this. I can call it customer records. If you have a particular name that you want to pop in there, you can type in here and change it if you want to. I'm going to just leave it as customer records and I'm going to save it. Now, if I clear the map, I'm back to where I was. Now, if I click on load map, my map is saved there. So if I just need to click on it, click open, and it pops it all in there for me. So I don't have to sit every time. If you're using something, it's maybe from a different software that you're importing the data on, when you're mapping it, if you've got the same headings all the time, you can save that map and then you can load it. Just makes it easier than having to use the drop-down box every time, especially if you've got quite a lot that you're trying to import at the same time as well. Tells us the map that it's using, file in use, it's the customer map. So it's the one that I've just saved there. And as you saw, you can clear it and you can load it as well. So if I click next now, it gives us that import summary. And if I click on import, it goes through those 2 checks for me. And it's imported them in there. If I close out of there, have a look at customers. There they are at the bottom. And it means I've got that mapping saved as well there. So it just makes it a bit easier as well. So what we've looked at so far is how to import to add new records. But if you want to just add additional information or update things in bulk to existing records, and the key to this is the account reference. So this part here, this is our account reference down here. Now, if the account reference exists in Sage when you're importing something in, it will update that account for you. However, if the account reference doesn't exist, it will create a new customer account, or if it was suppliers, it'll create a new account for you on there. So the key is the reference. So if I want to go in and create a brand new customer, I need to use a reference that's not already in use here. So what we can do is we can update things. So maybe you want to update the credit limit. So if I just right click on here, we'll just add a column in. And we've got credit limit now. So my credit limit is now shown. Some of them have already got a credit limit. What if I want to change some of these credit limits on here? So I could send it to Excel. So send my customer list to Excel. So I'll send all the customers that I've imported in. There's my list there. Got some headings on there as well. It's got the credit limit. So what about if I pop in, we'll pop in 5,000, drag that down for a few of them. Put a couple of random ones in as well. Just some random numbers in there, okay? Now, if I go to File and Save it, Save As, Browse, pop it on my desktop. There, so pop it on my desktop. We'll just call it Import Test. I'm just going to save that. Just go saving that in the background, and then it's closed. So if I close out of this, and now if I go back to File, and if I go to Import, and yes, I just want to close those unopened windows. Take that back up before you import anything in, remember. Hit Next, Fill Customer Records, again, Browse. Now this time it was on my desktop. So that's it there, my import test. That's the one that I've just done. I'm going to open that. First row contained headings, it did. Hit Next. And I'm going to now map it on here. So I'm going to say, well, the first one I know is my account reference. That's the mandatory one. We have to have that one. Anything else we can choose to import. So I don't need to import the street details. None of that's changing. If it was changing, so if the name was changing, for example, you could import the name. That's staying the same. So I'm just going to leave that blank. The only thing that I wanted to import with the reference was the credit limit. So if we scroll down to credit limit, there it is there. Now if I scroll down to credit limit in here, so what it will import is the credit limit against the account reference. Anything else in between, it's not going to pull anything else through because I'm not asking it to update those details. I'm going to click Next. I don't want it to change my customer records one, so I'm just going to say no to that. That's just my saved mappings. I don't want it to update that. And I'm going to click Import. can see there, import all for those records there. So I'm going to close out of that. Go to my customers. And if we have a look now, we've got a credit limit there for 5,000 for some of them and a couple of random numbers at the end there. So if you've got a lot of records that you need to update, you can send them to Excel. You can change whatever you want to change, save it, and then import that data in, and it'll import those changes. Now, the main thing, as I said, because those references already exist, it's just updating my existing records. Now, if these references didn't exist, what it would do is it would pop them in wherever they may be within here, and it will just pop a credit limit against them. So that's the key thing for if you're updating details, you need to just make sure you've got that account reference in there. With regards to troubleshooting, so there may be, or there are some common themes with importing errors, and the main ones are things like the import file still being open. So just make sure that that's closed. If you try to import it and it's still open, it'll just tell you that it's still open and you need to close it basically. Another one is illegal sales or illegal purchase ledger account reference. Now, it doesn't mean that it's illegal, it just means that it's not permitted. So make sure that the account reference is 8 characters or less. I'm going to show you that in a moment. Also, blank lines in the spreadsheet. So if there's a blank line, what it will do is it'll import the data up to that line and it leaves the rest as the program reads that file as finished at that point. So if you've got a gap in it, it'll just import everything up until the gap and then it'll stop after that. But if it's something that you are struggling with, give our technical support guys a call and we can have a look at it with you. That's what they're there for. There's also a link on this slide as well for import errors. So if you get an import error, you can just type it in and it'll tell you what you need to do. But we'll pop into the system. I've got a couple of demonstrations that we'll have a look at. I'll just pop back. I think these ones are suppliers as well. So as I say, suppliers, customers, it all looks the same when you're importing them in. But if I go to File at the top, and we'll go to Import, and the first one, I'm just going to open it so you can see what it looks like. So this is the illegal account reference. Sounds a bit more drastic than it really is on here. So we've got some suppliers here. We've got the details on there. We've got quite a long reference on this one, but we'll try and import it in to see what it looks like. So you would take your backup, the next supplier record this time. I know we're doing customers, but it looks exactly the same. I'm going to browse to it. Now I'm on my desktop. So if I just go back into where I've got the other one saved, this one, import records, there it is there. So it's the illegal account reference. It's that one. First row contained headings. Next. And we'll map a few of these in here. I'm going to click next on here. Gives us that summary. We'll try and import it. It does those 2 checks on there. And you can see there, records not imported. And it tells us that there's one error. So even though there's one error in there, it doesn't import anything. So the whole file would not be imported. So that's very important. So it's not just that you need to correct one and import that one that had the problem on it. Everything won't import. So we have a look at it. If we click Edit Import, it'll open it up for us so we can have a look. And I'm just going to minimize it and just drag it down on here because the one other thing I want to show you. So it tells us here, error is in record 4, account reference, illegal purchase ledger account reference. So because the first line is classed as the header on there, it'll start counting them from the second line. So it might look like the error is in record 4, but technically this is record 4 because this is record 1, 2, 3, 4. So just be wary of that because that can catch you out on there. It bumps it down 1 because the first line contains headings. So I know the reason for this. If I just drag this back up, this is a bit too long. I know we're sort of running out of time, but just to show you what the errors look like, I'm going to save that. Close out of that. Close out of here. We'll just try that one again, and then I'll show you the blank line one as well. So apologies for going over slightly. So it's a supplier record. Browse to that record. My illegal one. First row contains headings, so I'll leave that ticked. Map a few of those lines on there. We'll just do the first 4, just to be quick. Next, import that. A little bit think of it, and there, we can see they've all been imported now. So if I close out of there, pop into suppliers, there, we've got those ones. The other one is the blank line. So if I open that one, I'll try and be quick for you because we are running over a little bit, so apologies. It looks like we're on top of the questions though. So remember, if you do have any questions, pop them in the questions panel there. So this is our blank line. So there's nothing in here. So when it looks at it, it'll import these details here and it will think that that's the end and it won't import these. So these are suppliers again. So if I close out, I go to File, Import, yes to close in the windows, take my backup, click Next, choose my data type, and I'm going to browse. I pick, it was my blank line. Say OK to that. My first row contains headings. Click Next again. We'll just map the first few again. Again, if this was something that you were doing regularly, you can save the map. So all you need to do is just click on Load Map next time. Makes it so much quicker. Click on Next, and then I'm going to click Import. And you'll see this time with that blank line on there, it doesn't give me an error message, but you'll see it's only imported a few in. So if I close out of here, I go to suppliers, it's imported these few in, but none beginning with W, which was sort of at the end there. So it's missing those last 4 or 5 off the bottom there. So we'll pop back to the slides there. Like I said, it looks like we're on top of questions there as well. I have popped on or added some links to our guides on our help centre around importing data as well. So these are things that we've looked at during the demonstration. So how to import data, importing using the import wizard. So that was where you can click on here. You can get all those templates and it takes you through it step by step. Data fields that you can import as well. So it'll tell you what you can import. And I've also popped on there as well, registering for a webinar. We are booked in up until the end of August now, so we've got plenty in there. We are running a series of slightly shorter ones. So we've booked them in for half an hour. This one has ran over slightly, but just because I wanted to show you there's quite a few different variations of importing data in there. And I don't want you to get caught out with things. And yeah, so I'll pop that on there for you as well. But it looks like we're on top of the questions. So it does bring us to the end of today's webinar on there. So I hope that has been useful. And you can see that importing records, it is straightforward as well there. As always, you're going to get a survey when leaving the session today. So we always love it if you could fill that in, give us any feedback on there, any comments around what else you might like to see on a webinar, or if you've got anything you'd like to see done differently perhaps as well. You will get a recording as well, like I say, in about an hour's time. That'll come through via email so you can watch it back, because there are a few different variations of how you can import data in there as well. But I just want to say thank you for attending, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day there. So thank you for attending.